Last year in Miami, Lando Norris etched his name into the annals of Formula One history with a jaw-dropping maiden victory. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. McLaren was no longer the punchline of the midfield. It had become a legitimate contender, and Norris was its spearhead. Fast forward 12 months, and while Norris still basks in the spotlight, it's his teammate Oscar Piastri who's seizing control of the narrative in the paddock. With 3 wins in just 6 Grand Prix, a firm lead in the standings, and the chance to make headlines again under the punishing Miami sun, Piastri's emergence is no longer a surprise. It's a reckoning. The young Australian isn't just fast, he's unervingly composed. Where others crack under pressure, he slices through chaos with surgical precision, collecting trophies while his rivals flounder. This weekend's sprint format throws another curveball into the mix, yet Piastri seems unshaken. Armed with a 10-point cushion over Norris and just a slim margin over Verstappen, he's perfectly positioned to tighten his grip on the title race. But beyond the numbers and podiums, there's a more profound shift underway. Is Formula One witnessing the rise of its next generational powerhouse? If you've just landed here, hit that subscribe button. This isn't just another race preview. This is a front-row seat to a paradigm shift in the sport. Let's dive in. Oscar Piastri's 2025 surge isn't some fairy tale from the world of motorsport. It's a calculated storm, a methodical disruption that's quietly rewriting the balance of power in Formula One. What began as whispers during pre-season testing has snowballed into a full-blown roar of dominance. Now, as the Miami Grand Prix looms large, that roar has become thunder echoing across the paddock. The question is no longer whether Piastri can win. The question is, who can stop him? To fully grasp the magnitude of his rise, one must consider the battlefield he's conquered. F1 in 2025 is a high-pressure cauldron. Multiple world champions like Hamilton and Alonso still occupy the grid. Supremely gifted drivers like Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, and George Russell are still hunting for their first world title. And prodigies like Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Oliver Behrman are charging forward with youthful hunger. Yet, amid this thick forest of talent, Piastri has carved a razor-sharp, clinical path straight to the summit. After 6 rounds, he leads the championship not by fluke or attrition, but through cold, relentless execution. 3 wins, 2 pole positions, and an average finishing position of 1.8 across the last 4 races. This is not coincidence. These are the imprints of a driver who has already mastered rhythm, consistency, and racecraft beyond his years. And when you take a closer look at how he's been doing it, the picture becomes even more striking. Let's start with his approach. Piastri doesn't go for flair. He's not explosive over team radio. He doesn't grab headlines with controversial quotes or wild podium antics. What he is, however, is ruthlessly efficient. His racing style is stripped down to the essentials: clean, precise, and razor-sharp. There's no wasted motion, no unnecessary risks. Rarely do you see him locking up under pressure or tangled in reckless battles. And perhaps the most remarkable trait of all? His adaptability. In Bahrain, he conquered the desert by managing tire degradation better than anyone else. In Jeddah, he nailed a safety car restart and instantly pulled away on the high-speed sections of the lap. In the Saudi Arabian sprint, he handled risk versus reward with the kind of calculated maturity that most drivers take half a decade to develop. This isn't just natural talent, it's a cerebral, strategic campaign. And more importantly, he's no longer chasing Verstappen or Norris. He's leading them. That shift in power changes everything. In seasons gone by, we've seen flashes of brilliance from drivers like Charles Leclerc in 2022 or Norris himself in parts of 2023. But those bright starts were often dimmed by the psychological burden of leading a title charge. The mental toll of expectation has derailed many promising seasons. Piastri, however, appears to become more composed the higher he climbs. His calm doesn't crack, it calcifies. And when 1980 world champion Alan Jones recently said that Piastri can win it all this year, it wasn't just patriotic noise. It was a performance-based belief. Now, let's shift the lens to Lando Norris. Miami was his crowning achievement last year, a stunning drive from P5 to P1 that was supposed to ignite a full-blown title push. It was meant to be the proof he belonged among the sports elite. And for a moment, it was. But 2025 has exposed some troubling fractures beneath the surface. There's no shame in admitting mistakes. In fact, Norris's candid interviews are often a breath of fresh air in a sport full of PR-scripted quotes. But in Formula One, where belief in yourself is often the fine line between victory and collapse, that same honesty can quietly corrode confidence. He knows he has the speed. He knows McLaren has given him a capable car. Yet qualifying has become a recurring weakness. A string of disappointing Saturdays has forced him into comeback drives, and even when he finishes strong, the uphill battle has already taken its toll. Piastri, in contrast, has frequently started on the front row, and made it count. That leads us to a difficult, uncomfortable but necessary question. Is Lando Norris mentally fragile under pressure? Alan Jones thinks so. And he's not alone. Rumblings in the paddock suggest that Norris's window to become world champion may be narrowing. Not due to a lack of raw talent, but because of who's sharing the garage with him. It's one thing to be outperformed by a three-time world champion. It's something else entirely to be overshadowed by a younger teammate with fewer seasons and fewer scars. Miami could be a turning point, not just for the standings, but for how the sport views both McLaren drivers. One may be on the rise, while the other finds himself fighting not just his rivals, but the creeping shadow of doubt. If Norris manages to outpace Piastri here, the storyline resets. But if he doesn't, we might be witnessing a permanent reshuffling of McLaren's internal hierarchy. And speaking of hierarchies, let's zoom out to the broader battlefield. Max Verstappen, 64 career victories and counting. A driver who, even with a slightly dulled Red Bull machine, remains the most lethal force on the grid. He's just 12 points adrift of Piastri. Let that sink in. Despite securing only one win so far this season, in Japan, Verstappen has finished outside the top two just once, back in Bahrain. The consistency remains. The aggression still pulses beneath the surface. What's missing is the sheer car dominance that once made him untouchable. And that sliver of vulnerability might be just enough for Piastri to seize his moment. The Red Bull RB21 has shown glimmers of brilliance, blistering straight-line speed in Jeddah, impressive tire management in Japan, but it hasn't looked as composed or as adaptable as its 2023 predecessor. Its upgrades haven't delivered the same knockout punch. Verstappen is still fighting, but for the first time in years, he's not controlling the terms. And that is a seismic shift. Should Piastri triumph in Miami while Verstappen finishes behind Norris or Leclerc, the title picture could tilt in a direction Red Bull hadn't prepared for. Meanwhile, Ferrari remains something of a riddle. Hamilton claimed their only win this year during the Chinese sprint, but since then, the momentum has slipped. Carlos Sainz has been the more dependable of the two, yet neither Ferrari driver seems capable of mounting a sustained challenge, unless the team can unlock stronger race day performance. Their single-lap pace isn't the issue. Strategic errors and tire degradation, however, have repeatedly cost them dearly. If Hamilton doesn't rediscover his rhythm soon, Ferrari could find itself dragged into the thick of the midfield scrap. And we haven't even touched on Mercedes yet, a team whose prestige now feels like a distant memory. The once dominant Silver Arrows are now struggling just to reach Q3 with both cars. The W15 has failed to shine at high downforce venues, in low-speed corners, and even during sprint sessions. Toto Wolff publicly stays defiant, but behind the curtain, frustration is growing. George Russell continues to shoulder more of the team's momentum, while teenage sensation Andrea Kimi Antonelli is flashing enough promise that he might leapfrog the pecking order mid-season if results don't improve. If Mercedes stumbles again in Miami, it would only deepen their ongoing crisis. Then there's the venue itself. The Miami International Autodrome isn't your typical street circuit. It's fast, uneven, and relentlessly hot. Last year, track surface temperatures exceeded 55 degrees Celsius, and drivers described the cockpit as a sauna mid-turbulence. The layout features 3 tight sectors and 19 corners, demanding both top-end speed and mechanical grip. But what makes this circuit such a wild card is its newly resurfaced tarmac, slick, unpredictable, and prone to sudden grip drop-offs. Add the sprint format to the mix, and you've got a volatile recipe where chaos could erupt at any moment. That volatility matters. In a standard weekend, teams can absorb a poor Friday and regroup. In a sprint weekend like Miami's, one bad session can sabotage the entire event. Setup time is slashed, qualifying is squeezed, and the impact of every mistake is magnified. And this is exactly where someone like Piastri thrives. He doesn't overreach. He doesn't flinch. In a race where tire wear and tactical choices could dictate the outcome, McLaren's overall race day strength this season may tip the balance in his favor. So, is Oscar Piastri really the heir to the Formula One throne? Or is this just a hot streak before the reigning titans strike back? Let me know your prediction in the comments below.